Welcome in to the Lucas and Lucas podcast. The Celtics celebrate the record 18th NBA championship. Lucas Frankel alongside Mike Lucas and Mike. This to me was one of the easiest paths to a championship in the history of sports. You look at what the Celtics had to go through. First round, supposed to be a daunting matchup against the Heat. Jimmy Butler gets hurt in the play-in. Don't see a second of Jimmy Butler. Round number two, Donovan Mitchell gets hurt early in the series. Jared Allen did he even play in the series? Not that he did not play in the series. Tyrese Halliburton hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they get to face a 5 seed for the NBA championship with a Luka Doncic who was nowhere close to 100% and just a Mavs team that honestly didn't deserve to be there, and they were there, and the Celtics they didn't face a single ounce of adversity like the whole postseason. There wasn't a moment where it was like, oh my God, the Celtics are on the ropes. Like you look at other great teams in the history of sports, like the Yankees in 1998. Down 2-1 to the Cleveland Indians in the ALCS, came back and they relied on El Duque in a pivotal game 4 on the road, and he pitched the game of his life, and the Yankees ended up winning that series. Like this route for the Celtics, there wasn't a second during it where you were like, "Oh no, is there a question whether they're not going to win here?" It never happened. To me, it was just a very boring run to the championship.
Yeah, well, first off, you can only control what you can control. They can't control who they play. They can't control who gets hurt. It is unfortunate that Jimmy Butler got hurt, and then Donovan and Jarrett missed the second round series, and then Halliburton got hurt in the third round series. Luka wasn't 100%. They also didn't have Porzingis for those 2 series as well, and most of the Heat series. He makes a massive difference for this team. But at the end of the day, Frank, as boring as the finals were, and as boring as this Boston Celtics team is, they were far and away the best team in the NBA this season. And the only team that I thought could have gave them a legitimate shot in hindsight, and I was wrong. I thought the Mavericks could make it close. I was totally wrong. The only team I think in the Western Conference that could have made it a series was Denver in their regular season matchups. Boston had no answer for Nikola Jokic, which no team really does, but he was kind of the X factor that negated all the pros and the positives that Boston brings to the table. But when you look at this, Frank, Miami was never in the same class as Boston this season. The Cavs at full strength were never in the same class as the Celtics. The Pacers were there because they went through Milwaukee, who got hurt, and then beat a Knicks team that crippled literally down the stretch in their second round series. Had no business playing the Boston Celtics. And part of the reason is because Boston was damn good, Frank. The way they played, their ability to switch, their ability to shoot. You look at today's era of basketball and what makes and constitutes a successful team in today's day and age. Do you have shot creators? Do you have three-point shooters? And do you have guys who can switch on defense? And no team has more of all of those in the same players than the Boston Celtics do. And I'm not surprised they won the championship with the fashion and ease of which they did, because when you look at the totality of their season, Frank, I saw the craziest stat. They played 101 games this season. In 50 of those games, they had a 20-point lead. In 49% of the games they played this season, they led by 20 points. They were just boring, and that's why it feels underwhelming. But they were by far, hands down, unquestionably the best team in the NBA this season from the start to the very finish.
Yeah, it's scary in the sense that like this looks like it could be a situation where the Celtics could be a potential dynasty. Like because in the East, who do we see in the East that could potentially pose a legitimate threat to the Celtics in the next few years? Because just looking at the conference, like the Bucks are kind of screwed themselves over with the Damian Lillard trade. I mean, obviously Lillard admitted that, he didn't work out over the offseason, and that sort of ruined, or at least according to him, ruined his ability to be playing elite level this season. But you look at even in the division, like the Sixers with Embiid, like Embiid can never stay healthy. Why should anyone believe that he's ever going to be healthy for a full season? The Cavs.
Nope.
I mean, if Garland and Mobley and Allen continue to blossom into like elite level players, maybe they're the only legitimate team that could pose a threat. But Jimmy Butler's only getting older. Like in his situation, Miami is very shaky at best. I just don't see a legitimate threat in the East that's gonna make the Celtics not make it back to the finals for however many years to come. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are 26 and 27 years old. This could be like a 6-7 year run where they make the finals every single year. And then this goes back to,
it's already been a 6 or 7 year run too, Frank, which sucks.
Right.
Because they've been in the conference finals or the finals now, I think, in 5 of the last 7 years.
And shame on Boston, honestly, for not having Billy King on any float during this period. Because, like, if you're looking for the architect of the Celtics dynasty, it's Billy King. I don't know if he was on their he was on the payroll, and it keeps going back to like I remember Bill Simmons had, I believe the owner of the Celtics, Wick Grossbeck. I believe that's who the guy was
Yep.
years ago, 5 or 6 years ago.
Another conversation.
And I was driving back from Utica and to New Jersey, and I remember listening to the podcast, and he was like, and they were talking about their conversations with Billy King, and the conversation was something along the lines of, all right, so this is the Nets offer. You know what? Why don't we just ask him, see if they'll add in another first-round pick or two. Just see if they'll do it. And they called the Nets, and were like, hey, you want to add an extra 2 first-round picks and a swap? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever you need. And then those picks ended up turning into, Jason Tatum. And it just makes me absolutely sick. And Billy King, hands down, the worst executive in the history of sports, just completely blossomed the Celtics.
I was real quick, Rick. I was having a conversation with someone who now works with someone who was in that front office at the time. And my friend was unaware of the connection and how involved he was in said trade. And I was describing to him as, I can understand from the Nets standpoint why they did what they did. And then when Mikhail Prokhorov got out and they decided to go in a different direction, everything was derailed. But the worst case scenario, and all these trades that involve picks, like you can do the current Nets trade for Kevin Durant. Like we won't know how that pans out for 4 or 5 years when all the picks are said and done. The worst case scenario in every aspect of that trade came to fruition for the Nets. Both of those picks landed in the lottery, turned into legitimate, bona fide superstars. Pierce, Garnett, Terry cratered faster than anyone could have imagined. All the it was one perfect jambalaya of a effing catastrophe for the Brooklyn Nets, excuse me. Sorry, Cleveland's on my mind, but it was the perfect cocktail of catastrophe. Every worst case scenario came to fruition, and you couldn't replicate that sequence of bad luck again if you tried. So it sucks, and it does. I hate the Celtics. They were boring, Frank. The finals was boring. We got one competitive game in the entire finals. We move on and talk about something else because it really is.
Well, I do have a couple more points because if we're really looking at like who's as much of an idiot as Billy King is in this whole mess, the true biggest idiot could be the Philadelphia 76ers, who opted to take Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons over Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This could be the Sixers. The Sixers could have.
But you can't fault them for the Simmons pick. That was Jaylen Brown was a top 10 prospect. The Celtics were the only team that would have taken him at number 3. The Markelle Fultz one, you legitimately can have qualms because the Celtics would have taken Tatum at 1. And the fact that they were able to finagle a trade and get out of it, which allowed Boston to then get Tatum, is just absurd.
Well, the moral of the story is this could have been the Sixers, and it just ended up not being it because they wanted Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. But that's beside the point. One last thing about the Mavericks, now that the Celtics are going to have a little dynasty here. So I don't think the Mavericks get back to the finals next season. I don't know if who knows if Luka will even get back to one in his whole career. I'm sure he's that good, and the Mavericks they just have a lot of work to do to, I think, rebuild this roster to get them to be a legitimate title contender. And maybe, if Lively continues to blossom, then that could happen. But I just don't foresee another situation where Kyrie Irving has a season like this where there is zero distractions. The guy was an absolute model citizen, and to expect that to happen is just, to me, so unrealistic. I think Denver will be better next year. The Timberwolves aren't going anywhere. The Thunder just got Alex freaking Caruso. I mean, to me, he's like the Drew Holiday. Him and Drew Holiday are very similar type players in terms of what they bring to the table, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And the Thunder, to me, are one big man away from like being a legitimate powerhouse team. Because they didn't have that. They were getting killed in the glass. The Thunder lost to. They lose to Minnesota. So also the Mavericks, and I guess Lively was the one who killed them. They just need another big guy down low who can sort of neutralize those big men down low. But I just don't see an avenue where the Mavericks can get a lot better, and they just got so many breaks this year that I just think it was just the perfect storm for them to reach the finals.
Yeah, I'm not writing off Luka making it back. Like he's that special. He absolutely could carry the team to the finals again, but it was a perfect combination of They didn't have to play Denver. Like, they would not have beat the Denver Nuggets. They caught Minnesota coming off a series where they used every ounce of energy to beat said Denver Nuggets. The Thunder were a good matchup for them in terms of they didn't have the rim protection to stop Kyrie and Luka from getting downhill at will. And also, and this is the underrated part of the whole thing, Frank, their role players caught fire for a month. PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green, Derek Lively, and Gafford played terrific throughout the Western Conference playoffs. And then the finals came, and all four of those guys, and if you want to throw Kyrie in there too, he's not technically a role guy, but he was nowhere to be found in the finals. And the biggest difference between Boston and Dallas in the finals was, even though Tatum didn't show up to the level you would have hoped, and Brown had his ups and downs, the Derek Whites of the world, the Drew Holidays of the world, the Porzingises of the world, the Sam Hausers of the world, the Peyton Pritchards showed up when on Dallas's side, they couldn't buy a three-point shot. I mean, seriously, they couldn't buy a three-point shot, and Kyrie outside of game 3 was a complete non-factor. So you can't go into a playoffs for any team and expect or predict, hey, our 5 role players are going to get hot for 5 weeks. And they're going to take it. Like, you can't, that's an irreplicable strategy for success, but it's what helped Dallas this time. And it's what you have to hope for when you go into a playoff series, unless you're built like the Celtics, who have 5 top 50 players in the league.
All right, that'll put wrap up our NBA Finals talk. But in the least surprising news in the history of sports, the Los Angeles Lakers are hiring JJ Redick to be their head coach. And I can't think in the history of sports a single move that had one person's fingerprints on it more than LeBron James just saying, this is who I want, get it done. And now he's the Lakers head coach. He has no experience, and I have no reason to believe that this is going to go better than Jason Kidd's first tenure with the Nets, Steve Nash's tenure with it. It's just crazy that the Nets have done this twice. They've hired a person directly from the court to coach. And well, I guess Steve Nash worked in the front office, but had no coaching experience and expected it to work, and it just didn't. Obviously, Jason Kidd over the course of 10, 11 years has developed into a good coach, or at least, I mean, he led the Mavericks to the finals.
He's a good coach.
So I just don't. This is LeBron saying, I want this guy. I don't know what's going to change for the Lakers. I don't see a coach coming in there and just changing the whole fortunes of a franchise that doesn't have a ton of flexibility. So I don't know what the Lakers are expecting here. I wish them luck, but to me, this is they're sort of on a bridge to nowhere right now because LeBron's only getting older. LeBron's not going to, I mean, we'll see what happens with LeBron, but I imagine he's going to stay with the Lakers.
Yeah. I think you nailed it on the head, Frank. Who knows if JJ's going to be a good coach? Who knows if he'll be a good coach right away? What I do know is that the Lakers run it back with essentially the same roster they have. There are just serious limitations on their potential. It's a second-round playoff team. If everything breaks their way, similar to how the Celtics went through the playoffs where their other team's best players gets hurt, maybe they can make the conference finals, but they're not in the same class right now as the Denvers or the Minnesotas, really. I mean, I think there's a strategic, not strategic, but a steep cliff between the top teams in the West, the OKCs, and the Lakers. Now, they do have 3 first-round picks to trade. They do have a couple of salaries that you could add up in trades. I'm not sure who the third star you go after is to make your roster more complete. But if this roster stays together, I don't care if you have Spo or JJ Redick. There's a limit on how far this team can go, barring some crazy luck on the opposition. So JJ could be a great coach. He may be a terrible coach. I have no idea. But what I do know is unless they make some sort of realistic change to improve this roster, they cannot compete with the best teams in the West.
What do you make of the optics here? Is this you, LeBron, just being like, this is who I want to doing it? Or what do you make of the search? Like the whole Dan Hurley thing. I said from the start, didn't buy that for a second. I said that from the second they fired Darvin Ham, this was JJ Redick's job all the way, and it ended up happening. And the fact that LeBron's talking basketball with JJ Redick during the season while Darvin Ham is on the hot seat, it's like he decided in that moment, oh my God, this is the guy I want coaching my team. And it just happened. It's crazy.
The stars in the NBA have all the power, Frank. Donovan Mitchell is doing it in Cleveland right now. I'm not sure it's purely his hire, but they are running every candidate by him. They're not going to hire someone without his approval. We've seen it happen in Brooklyn time after time after time. Steve Nash to Jock Vaughn. They wanted Ime Udoka. It is just how it works in today's day and age. And for better or worse, it's the world we live in. It is. If tomorrow Nikola Jokic said, I don't like Mike Malone, I want a new coach, Mike Malone would be a free agent. It's that simple. So it kind of is what it is. Unless you're a Pop, Spo, or Kerr, I don't think you have any stability whatsoever outside of your star player.
Yeah. I want to talk about this Bill Belichick situation. He is dating
I can't believe you want to talk about this, by the way.
I just
I was
find it so.
shocked when I saw this on the rundown.
So obviously, this happens a lot in society where you have these elderly people dating these women in their or vice versa. These 80-year-old women dating these younger men, or these whatever, these very wealthy people dating these younger people. I just for whatever reason, I just find this Belichick thing so just it makes me like cringe. It really is so cringeworthy that this guy is dating a 24-year-old former cheerleader. Like he has kids older than this woman. Like if I was Bill Belichick's son, I would be like, Dad, what are you doing? Like this is like I'm older than this person. Like I get like the woman's probably all about the money. There's no actual like, ooh, Bill Belichick, so handsome. Like I just find it so creepy, and I don't know what like they met on a plane. It's so I'm just very grossed out by the whole situation. Usually I'm not like usually when these like rich people are doing it, like I'm like whatever. But for whatever reason, this particular one is like really striking a nerve with me.
At the end of the day, if someone makes someone happy, then let them be together, and who cares? This certainly looks weird from the outside looking in. Apparently, the video of Belichick leaving the woman's house that got caught on the Ring camera was her house. So, if you believe that report, it all ties back together. They've clearly been connected, at least if that is true, that was her Ring camera for a good amount of time now. So this isn't a new thing. And if it makes Belichick feel young and happy, and she likes being able to pick his brain, let him live, Frank. Like
If you were Bill Belichick's son and you saw like him dating someone younger than you, what would you think about it?
On the one hand, I'd be like, good for you, pops. Like, I had a boy. On the other hand, I'd be like, are we sure she's? I mean, I'd have my questions. But I don't know her whatsoever. I don't know where she comes from. It would be unfair of me to like put her in a box with some other people where I know what their direct end goal is from a certain relationship. So with this one, I think it's certainly fair to question Frank, but if he makes her happy and she makes him happy, who am I to judge?
Yeah, I mean, good for him, I guess. It just
But yeah, it's
anyway. So the New York Yankees, I tweeted yesterday, the season is over. I just decided there's too many holes in this team. Soto and Judge are great. The pitching's finally coming back to earth. Rizzo's gone for 2 months. Glaber cannot be trusted. DJ LeMahieu cannot hit anymore. The Oswaldo Cabrera magic is gone. The Orioles are an absolute wagon. I know they've dealt with pitching injuries, but that lineup is so relentless with Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and Anthony Santander and Cedric Mullins. They just top to bottom are just an absolutely behemoth lineup that's going nowhere. The Yankees are 2-5 against Baltimore this year. I'm probably overreacting, but
you are
so negative about what I've seen from the Yankees these last 2 series against the Red Sox and the Orioles. Really disheartening stuff. That loss on
Frank,
Wednesday
we did this all last year. You cannot, and we do it here in Cleveland too. 6 games in a 162 game season is such a micro. Now, once you hit 10 games, they stop playing well. Okay, it's a little time to panic. With 2 series, they went 2-4. Like everyone's gonna be all right. Luis Gil got hit last night, worst start of the season by far. Yes, it was disappointing to lose 2-3 to the Sox, and yes, you want to win a series against Baltimore, especially with Garrett Cole coming back. I thought he actually pitched decent in his first return to the mound this season. Frank, I'm going to stop you before you jump off a cliff because I know where you're going to go with this, and you're going to say the first 75 games were a mirage because of this 6-game stretch. But I'm going to tell you to take a deep breath. I'm going to remind you that Aaron Judge is back after getting hit in the hand. He only missed 2 games. That's a positive sign. I'd rather have that and see him hit a home run last night than get too caught up in a bad result. Was it 17-5, 18-5, whatever the final was? Like, bad night, bad loss. Orioles were locked in. They're a damn good team, Frank. They are a damn good team. And yeah, the Yankees pitching so far is probably unsustainable to an extent. They're not going to be this good all year. But I like it last night as more of an aberration than a big picture issue for the Yanks moving forward.
So two things I didn't even mention that also are very concerning. The Yankees are horrible in extra inning games. They're like 1-6 this year.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
They're the most frustrating, infuriating losses when they lose in extra innings, because there's so many times when they go to the bottom of the 10th inning or whatever, like they don't give a run in the top of the inning, or, oh, we got this, and then they can't bunt the guy over, and then the next 2 guys end up getting out, and the inning's over, and then they end up giving up like 3 runs the next inning and then lose. It's like, it's so infuriating. And the other thing I didn't mention was Jose Trevino, who cannot throw out a turtle stealing second base. Literally, a turtle could steal second base on Jose Trevino. I don't know how this happened. On last Sunday, the Red Sox stole 9 bases. They set a franchise record with 9 stolen bases. I know, like, baseball's doing the whole thing where they're minimize the amount of times you can throw it for first base. They make the bases bigger because they want more action, more runs. But my God, this is a real problem for the Yankees. It's gotten to the point where I don't think Trevino could even be the playoff catcher. The Yankees need a new catcher, because
I actually agree.
You can't have this. This is just, you can't have it. You can't have a guy who, let's say, lead off the inning, you walk a guy, steal second, steal third. That's a triple. You're basically giving up a walk.
At least a double. I don't think they're going to steal third that frequently, but second, I have no confidence. None.
And then go back to the extra inning game the other day. You know, if Trevino makes a good throw on Cedric Mullins, maybe he's out at third, and the Yankees end up winning that game. But he throws it into left field, and Cedric Mullins steals third and then scores. I mean, I believe he walked in that inning, stole second. The Yankees tried to get him at third. Trevino's throwing in left field, and then he ended up scoring. Like, you can't have a guy walk and then make it to third, basically on a every time basis, because then all of a sudden, you know, you don't have to get a hit to score that guy. It is so scary what's happening with Jose Trevino, and it's crazy the Red Sox just unlocked this out of nowhere, because I always thought Trevino was a Platinum Glove winner. You know, that's the award to the best fielding player in all of baseball, the Platinum Glove, and he won it 2 years ago. Obviously, he was hurt last year, so I didn't have the chance to win it. Listen, he's a great pitch caller. He's great with the pitching staff. But if you can't throw out guys in the bases or can't control a running game, then you're useless.
You can't play in big situations. You could be a spot catcher to relieve your regular catcher every once in a while, but you can't have 3 out of 5 games or 4 out of 5 games where you're turning every single walk hit by pitch into a double. Like, that's just, you can't do it.
Yeah. So that's why I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the extra inning stuff. I'm concerned about Trevino. I'm concerned about Gleyber Torres. I hope they give up Oswald Peraza a real chance here to be a legitimate player on this team. In terms of keepers, like Verdugo, Soto, Judge, even Stanton's been good. So there's 4 or 5 guys in the lineup that I trust, but they just need to.
What would you do, Frank? With Rizzo out for 6 weeks, 4 to 6? I know they called up Rice.
Ben Rice.
Ben Rice. Would you consider putting LeMahieu at first and giving Peraza more of a shot in the infield?
Well, I think Peraza should be the second baseman. LeMahieu to me is so shot. Like, he drove the ball, I think, has driven the ball like maybe 1 or 2 times since he's come back to the team. His ability to just hit the ball hard, like anytime he's up, you know, whether it's scoring position, it feels like he hits a weak ground ball in the infield. They get the run out at home, and it's just like, what the hell was that? LeMahieu to me is so shot. Like, he can't be on the team either. So just a lot of problems right now for the New York Yankees.
And they're still in first place with the second best record in baseball. So,
yep. So Mike's got to run. Now I'll do it for this issue of the Lucas podcast. Maybe a champion will be crowned in the Stanley Cup final here on Friday night. Mike, who do you have winning game 6 of the Stanley Cup final?
Give me the Oilers. We're going back to Florida for game 7 on Monday.
See you guys next week.
Peace.